Well, let's talk about Russia. Well, Russian President Putin rarely minces words. I don't think we've known him to mince words. When he does speak, he speaks pretty directly, unlike some Western leaders who speak in, lies and esoteric bullshit. So he's told us exactly what's coming for the West if they continue to levy sanctions against his country. He said this over the past 24 hours. It will lead to a very dark winter, he said. And perhaps many dark winters to come. Not just one dark winter. We're already seeing a number in the UK that could be multiple winters of incredibly difficult heating sources. 1 out of 4 Britons, as we reported last night, don't even plan to turn on their heat this winter because they can't afford it. And we have breaking news this afternoon. That Russia is now cutting off gas and gas supply to energy giant, to France. In addition to which, we just learned a few moments ago that Mikhail Gorbachev has died as well. So Gazprom has announced it will halt supplies to France after their company's failure to pay for gas deliveries back in July. So Russia is now saying, we're done. Russia's state-owned energy giant Gazprom confirmed on Tuesday it had cut off gas supplies to the French utility company Engie. The Paris-based firm has failed to pay for its gas deliveries in full, Russia says. Gazprom informed Engie that it would cease the gas deliveries starting September 1st until the moment it gets the payment for the already supplied gas in full. And of course, this is just the tip of the iceberg on all of this, right? There's obviously much more to come on where and how Europe gets its gas from Russia. Now, we've been told for months that the West needs to place crushing sanctions on Russia in order to end the war in Ukraine. We've been hearing this malarkey, to steal a term from President Biden, that if we bankrupt Putin, we will help the Ukrainian people. This is what President Biden told us. Listen.
We're implementing full blocking sanctions on 2 large Russian financial institutions, VEB and their military bank. We're implementing comprehensive sanctions on Russian sovereign debt. That means we've cut off Russia's government from Western financing. It can no longer raise money from the West and cannot trade in its new debt on our markets or European markets either. Starting tomorrow and continuing in the days ahead, we'll also impose sanctions on Russia's elites and their family members. They share in the corrupt gains of the Kremlin policies and should share in the pain as well. And because of Russia's actions, we've worked with Germany to ensure Nord Stream 2 will not, as I promised, will not move forward.
So we know that's total bullshit, right? Because we know that Nord Stream 2 is going to move forward. And as I said before here on the show, the moment that Olaf Scholz, Chancellor of Germany, turns that on and says, let's go, this war is over. And we've seen the end of it. So that's going to happen. We know that that's going to happen because they won't be able to survive without it. You have Germans right now who are literally going through the forest trying to find wood right now and chopping down trees. They're themselves. They've never chopped down a tree in their life before, and they're trying to take care of their family. They don't have gas. So they're just going through forests and chopping down trees, chopping up bits into wood pulp. We talked about the European pellet problem, right? So they're trying to get, instead of getting the pellets that they would normally get from Russian wood and, of course, Russian coal, they're turning to the United States. That makes a lot of sense, right? So Germany, in order to be sustainable, right, shutting off nuclear power plants in order to be sustainable, is turning to the United States, which is going to push wood-pulped wood pellets onto barges and ship them across the ocean using fossil fuels to get them there so that Germany doesn't go cold this winter. Makes a lot of sense.
It's really hurting Putin, too, by the way. It's really sticking it to him.
So these people are insane. And you're right. So here today, shocking, Wall Street Journal. Front page of the Wall Street Journal. Russia confounds the West by recapturing its oil riches. Wall Street Journal pointing out that Moscow is raking in more revenue than ever with the help of new buyers, new traders, and the world's seemingly insatiable demand for crude. Let's go through this. Russia pumps almost as much oil into the global market as it did before the invasion of Ukraine. With its prices up, Moscow is also making more money. Demand from some of the world's largest economies has given Russian President Putin the upper hand in the energy battle that shadows the war in Ukraine and has confounded the West's bid to cripple Russia's economy with sanctions. That, to me, is the sentence that says it all right there. Basically, we don't know. We can't figure it out. We can't figure it out. How did we miss this? We were told, so the West is suffering tremendously and Russia is doing better than ever against the euro, against the US dollar, and all of Europe is facing a dark and cold winter with coal shortages, gas shortages, wood shortages,
food shortages,
and water shortages on top of it. Sales are booming in Russia's export market, the world's largest in crude and refined fuels. And new trade agreements have given Mr. Putin cover to use natural gas exports as an economic weapon against Ukraine's European allies. Before the war, Russia supplied Europe with 40% of its gas. It has since throttled those flows through the Nord Stream pipeline to Germany and other conduits. Like we just told you, into France, it's cut it off, driving prices higher and putting pressure on European households and businesses. Oil revenue makes more than the difference. Russia is swimming in cash, says Elena Rybakova, deputy economist at the Institute of International Finance. She says Moscow earned $97 billion from oil and gas sales through July this year. About $74 billion of that from oil, she said. So yeah, Russia is doing great. The flow of oil to all of these other countries. Doing fantastic. Now South Asia picking up the slack on all of this. Picking up the slack. India picking up the slack. Oh, not to the United States as much anymore? So be it. They'll just make up in other ways. So this whole idea that these Western sanctions were going to hurt Russia haven't. I've spoken to sources in Moscow and in Russia who've told me, no, there's plenty of food in the grocery stores. And what they're telling you about Russian sanctions hurting and crippling the economy there is total garbage. So wake up, people. Wake up.
And look at what it's done. It's a bully tactic, and all it has done is made Putin, given him the ability to hurt us even more, because now he can be like, well, you know what? The things that you are still taking from me because you're doing this to me. And he didn't do this for a long time, but now he can just be like, well, I'm going to start cutting you off. Yeah. And that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And we gave him no choice again.
Like we just saw that today. So when you are so reliant, here's the thing, when you listen and you kowtow to these globalists, to the World Economic Forum and others who tell you, we need to get rid of fossil fuels and move totally to solar and wind, get off of nuclear power. And then of course, again, I come back to the emperor has no clothes, right? Because then you get to see this unfolding right before your eyes that we don't have an infrastructure in place to deal with this. It was all a lie. And so this is why, and it may be part of the process here. It's like, I could go all conspiracy theory on you guys if you want. Should I? Just put up your hand if you want me to go conspiracy theory on you.
Do it. Because we're good, it's 6 months till it's true anyway?
Because so conspiracy theories we know are just 6 month spoiler alerts, so we're going to see this. We're already starting to see signs from some world governments that we should be putting in place a climate lockdown. We're seeing reports out of Australia of a whole plan to have the government lockdowns of its citizenry for climate purposes, to reduce fossil fuel use, to reduce heat emissions, carbon emissions, etc., in order to, work from home, don't go to the office, and this is how we're going to reset everything. So I just watched a fascinating report out of Australia on this specific topic. Now, it may sound conspiratorial, but did we think that lockdowns were ever going to happen? And they're there.
Well, I remember when it was conspiratorial, when they were putting people in, like they were quarantining people in Australia in little houses. They were taking people and putting them in there. And that's like, oh no, that's not happening. That's not happening. Sure as shit, it was happening.
It was happening. Rounding people up, right? So this could be a move towards that. You know, here's a perfect example. Look, we can't go out. We can't do anything. So we're just going to lock people down. This is the next step on our Great Reset bandwagon move. So meanwhile, you talked about like depleting supplies. So the other big piece of this, two major Wall Street Journal pieces this afternoon. One on how well Russia is doing in this and booming with oil prices and doing very, very well. The other piece is about how the West is suffering. This is the Wall Street Journal. Ukraine war is depleting U.S. ammunition stockpiles, sparking Pentagon concern. So this level of one type combat rounds in storage is uncomfortably low, says defense officials. So basically saying we are in trouble in the West, in the United States, because our military isn't ready or able to handle the demand for the number of weapons that we have, for like military readiness. The war in Ukraine has depleted American stocks of some types of ammunition, and the Pentagon has been slow to replenish its arsenal, sparking concerns among U.S. officials that American military readiness could be jeopardized by the shortage. The U.S. has, during the past 6 months, supplied Ukraine with 16 U.S. rocket launchers known as HIMARS, thousands of guns, drones, missiles, and other equipment. Much of that, including ammunition, has come directly from U.S. inventory stocks, depleting stockpiles intended for unexpected threats, defense officials say. We are uncomfortably low, thanks to us shipping all of this crap over to Ukraine where we can't even track it, and it's winding up on the black market anyway. But good, that's how your taxpayer dollars are being used. The other
not only that, but we basically wrap every bullet we send them in $100 bill with the amount of money we're sending with the ammunition. So it's like not only are we sending away all our ammunition, but just all of this money to go along with it.
It's like a little taco wrapped in a US dollar, $100 bill. And of course, we heard from the Pentagon last week that there are major concerns about where this money is going, and we don't know. We can't track it. They now know it's absolutely going on in the black market, but we can't track it. The other big piece of this story that no one's talking about is that, look at this. So according to Zero Hedge this afternoon, China is aggressively reselling Russian gas to Europe. I just want you to read that headline again and let it soak in for a second, guys. China is aggressively reselling Russian gas to Europe. Now, I want you to think about that. We just told you how South Asia, right, and China specifically, has become a huge fuel partner for Russian crude oil, right? So they're buying up more of it. They're buying up more of it, and now they're selling it back to Europe at dramatically increased prices. 1 month ago, we were surprised to read how, despite a suppressed appetite for energy amid its housing crash and economic downturn, for which zero COVID has emerged as a convenient scapegoat for Emperor Xi, China has been soaking up more Russian natural gas so far this year, while imports from other sources declined. In July, according to Chinese customs data, in the first 6 months of the year, China bought a total of 2.35 million tons of liquefied natural gas, valued at $2 billion. The import volume increased by 28% year on year, with the value surging at 182%. It meant Russia has surpassed Indonesia and the United States to become China's fourth largest supplier of natural gas this year. So Russia's pipeline gas to China has increased 63%. Okay, they've increased the flow to China. China is taking that liquefied natural gas and other resources, not just natural gas, and oil as well, crude oil, and they're selling it back to Europe. I mean, what freaking madness are we in the middle of right now? And people can't turn on their electricity. They can't turn on their heat. They can't turn on their gas stoves. Spain has sort of all sorts of like temperature controls right now. We've told you what's happening in Poland. It's a freaking disaster. So,
and also it's like that makes you question also why, like, we're selling our emergency reserves as well overseas, and it's like while we're dealing with these high gas prices, and we think what is the benefit that we the people get out of selling our reserves overseas? It's the same thing. It's like it's madness. It makes zero sense because let's say it, we get even if we got like a bunch of billions of dollars, like, well, how does that benefit us at all?
Yeah, I mean, I can't wrap my head around how it could, right? Because if at the end of the day, our sanctions against Russia, as President Biden told us, are to crush Vladimir Putin, to stop his war in Ukraine. Of course, that was never going to happen. The point of the Russian sanctions, as Tulsi Gabbard told us a few months ago, was never, ever to stop Russian advance in Ukraine. It was not going to happen. It was all to hurt individuals. That's it. It was all to consolidate power and hurt individuals. And of course, we have all these carve-outs and these unique ways around these sanctions anyway, right? So certain things are sanctioned, certain things aren't. It's ridiculous. And the West is being crushed in all of this.